All right, everybody, this is Aaron Breitman. A few minutes after Rutgers ended their 2022 season in a 37-0 loss to Maryland. Obviously frustrating, end the season on a 5-game losing streak. You lose to a team that, some people want to be the rival, for sure, have to be, is a measuring stick, no doubt, in terms of where this program's at within the Big Ten and on the national landscape. And it's very clear that Rutgers is way behind Maryland. 37-0 loss. They lost last year, 40-16. What is that? Test my math skills. 77-16 over the last 2 years. Maryland's had some notable wins. Rutgers now 2-11 in their last 13 Power 5 games since they beat Indiana last year to go 5-5, which I thought was a significant accomplishment to be 5-5 that late in the year. Last year was the first time in a few years. Then they lost the last 3 games of the season. Then they come in and they go 2-8 against Power 5 teams this year. You open with Boston College, who ends up being pretty bad themselves, 3-8 right now, playing Syracuse tonight. And then you beat Indiana again, who are 4-7. Who you're still going to finish behind in and finish in last place in the Big Ten East. So hard to show progress there. Obviously, the offense was, pretty abysmal. 120 yards, 5 first downs against the 11th ranked Big Ten defense. Rutgers did have success against Michigan State and Indiana, who I believe were 12th and 13th respectively, possibly 14th, one of them. But 3 of the worst defenses. And then you have, you come in with some hope against Maryland. Maybe you'll have some success, and they got completely shut out and dominated. Gavin Wimsatt, it's disappointing the last 2 weeks, definitely took steps back. But in fairness, the whole offense, everything's got to be fixed. The offensive line is not good. No tight end production other than a little bit from Johnny Langan, who, by the way, the Johnny Langan slanger's got to stop. Slanger has to stop. The kid has, he's a warrior. He's done more for this program than most players. He, was kind of the face of the program during a really difficult time and transition. And, although he didn't have, as great a year as a full-time tight end, he may have had some moments. He's tough as nails. And, he should be remembered very fondly and thanked whenever you see him, and really shouldn't have to buy a beer anywhere in New Jersey because I just think he deserves a lot of respect. So those people last week and maybe this week saying they can't wait for him to leave, grow up. Digressing there, the offense, everything has to change in terms of offensive line, wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, coaching. What's going to happen with the offensive coordinator, quarterback? Everything has to be evaluated. Everything has to be looked at. Everything is a problem in terms of the offense is not working whatsoever. I think that's the biggest disappointment for everyone is at the end of year 3, there is no offensive identity. There's no offensive production. This team cannot be competitive, cannot move up the Big Ten ladder when the offense is this bad. It's just reality. The defense showed promise this year. It got worn down predictably again. Not a rerun. Happens every year, it seems like. Disappointing performance against Maryland. But, Maryland is a top half Big Ten offense, and they got worn down. The defense looked good at the start. And then, offense gave them nothing, and Rutgers couldn't do anything. I think, the whole game really just, it was obvious things were going to be no different today when they recovered a fumble from Maryland and 4th and short, 4th and 1, and Rutgers calls a jet sweep on 4th and 1, and obviously predictably gets stuffed. It's just a mind-blowing call, probably the worst call of the season, probably the worst call I could remember, at least recently, the last few years. It just makes no sense. Talk about, I don't know, overthinking it or what. You have Gavin Wimsatt. The whole thing about Gavin Wimsatt not running is, I get it. He was, I guess, recovering from his ankle injury. I'm not a doctor. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but that just refusal to run him at all hurt Gavin Wimsatt, hurt the offense. And you can't run up a QB sneak or just run it up the gut with Langan. Whoever. Rochelle. If you're going to try the jet sweep too, run it with Rochelle. He was underutilized, but anyway, just terrible call. And I think it's just that's everything starts with offense for this team. What's going to happen with the offense? What is Schiano going to do? I've talked, this week, even on the podcast, I talked about the benefits of hiring Nunzio full-time. That was not me advocating for Nunzio. It's just some natural advantages, I think, on paper that he brings with it in terms of being able to hit the offseason running with his system, being able to hit the transfer portal right away with your coordinator, having the New Jersey ties, the family ties, the recruiting ties, the trust of Schiano, the knowledge and relationships already with the players. That being said, this kind of performance, really makes you question whether is that really a benefit, because the offense just is looking pretty bad. And who are you going to get in the portal that wants to come to play for an offense that is such a work in progress? The offensive line needs to be fixed. You need playmakers at every position. You need quarterback development, whether it's Wimsatt, who I don't think is fair to give up on at any means. He had no help. I think the concern would be, if teams are going to reach out to him and say, hey, come here, you don't have to wait for the entire offense to be rebuilt. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully he stays. Hopefully he's back. But, what's Schiano going to do? I think it is strange that there's been no names floated at all. I think Schiano, to me, I think wants Nunzio, or at least wanted to, give it a sincere shot at making that happen. I think we'll know soon. I think if reports could leak out tonight, tomorrow, Monday, about candidates, or, who knows if Schiano has a deal already under the table with an outside coordinator we're not thinking about. People keep wanting to know who's the home run hire. I mean, I don't think you're going to get a home run hire. It's going to be a really tough ask. I mean, people keep mentioning Phil Longo, Wayne Ruggiero, both New Jersey natives. They're both coaching really good offenses at North Carolina and Wake Forest in a conference that, by the way, has terrible defenses. Why would they come to Rutgers and rebuild for 3 years? It doesn't make sense. 2 years, 1 year, whatever. I get that the transfer portal is a great, denominator, and, teams can get good quick. Look at Kansas and Duke. But look at those conferences they're playing in. They're playing in conferences with terrible defenses. Rebuilding the Rutgers offense this is a very complex problem. It requires a lot of solutions, and it leaves a lot to, question. And I get it. Like, people, if you're not hopeful and you think it's never going to turn around, I get it. I understand. I'm not in that camp. I'm not, giving up on Schiano. I'm not giving up on the direction of this program. I think the defense obviously has a lot of promise, a lot of young players that are going to return. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, it's fair to wonder. I mean, year 4, you have to hit the ground running. You have Northwestern at home, you have Temple at home, you have Virginia Tech at home. You have to win those 3 games. If you're going to go bowling in 2023, I think you have to win all 3 of those games. And that means you're ready to go at the start, September 3rd, 2nd, whatever date it is. We're just 10 months away, right? The clock is ticking. This offense needs to be completely rebuilt. And it's certainly disappointing, at the end of year 3, Schiano, that, the offense has no identity, and not a lot to be positive about at all. It's tough. It's a tough sell. Special teams has gone backwards. No special teams coordinator. I mean, it's kind of, maybe it's unfair to pile on, but I mean, it looks like a mistake, right? I mean, the special teams went backwards. So, losing 5 games in a row to end the season, for me, it's not about the Michigan and Penn State loss and Ohio State. It's 31-0 to Minnesota, 37-0 to Maryland. Those are terrible blowout losses to teams that, you have to be competitive against to ever have a chance to move up in the Big Ten. And Rutgers was sorely not. If that is even grammatically correct, I don't know. But Rutgers is, so far away from Maryland. Minnesota is another one. Those are the games that really hurt and show how far away this team is. 5 losses to end the season, 4 by 31 or more points. Michigan State's a game you should have won. Nebraska's a game you should have won. And I think that's the argument for hope, I guess, is that, there's a fine line between 6-6 and 4-8. If they won those 2 games, it'd be 6-6, it'd be bowl eligible, it'd be a completely different narrative, completely different story. The offense would probably still be about the same right now, but they'd be going bowling. So how far away are they? It's going to take time to evaluate and kind of see what happens with the coaching staff, with who's coming here, who's leaving. But obviously the offense is not working. It has a long way to go. This program, like I said, I mean, they were pretty close to 6-6, but you have those losses. That this Maryland loss, this is a bad way to go in the postseason. I talked about it this week, needing to find some momentum. Now you go in with a 5-game losing streak. You get blown out by your so-called, I guess your local neighbor, rival, whatever, team that you're always going to be judged against, and you're way behind them now. So it's a tough sell. I think, recruiting classes in the 50s, obviously rankings aren't everything, but who are they going to get in the portal that's going to be able to help? I think that's the biggest question. And then how do we fix the mistakes that happened this year? Why did those mistakes happen? Was it talent? Was it coaching? Was it, I guess, a lack of execution? Was it a lack of understanding? Was it just youth? Was it, were the growing pains that we experience, are those going to ripen into success in the future? Or is it just not going to ever be good enough? And we don't know that. And it's hard to, nobody can tell you that to your face right now and say, I know for, people, Twitter's going to be fun tonight and tomorrow. People are going to be tweeting at me saying, Shannon is the worst, needs to be fired. Everybody needs to be fired, blah, 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 blah. You can't say that. There's certainly, Rutgers is all, people hate to hear this, but Rutgers is a different situation, perception-wise, building-wise. It just is. And I know that maybe it doesn't satisfy people's questions as to why, but, New Jersey, I think New Jersey recruits are never fully going to ever come here. The whole dream about if all New Jersey came to Rutgers would be good, I don't think that's ever going to be close to happen. You have to have recruiting relationships elsewhere. I think, Shano, I like the Ohio, Florida. But listen, the recruiting class has to be better. You have to get help out of the portal that can help right away. I thought Sean Ryan was probably their best ad, and he did have a good year. He did drop that deep ball today, which was frustrating. It's whenever Rutgers has a chance to build a little bit of momentum, it's like they shoot themselves in the foot, and it's just really frustrating. But that being said, season's now over. Plenty to evaluate. It's going to be a busy couple of weeks. I'm going to have plenty of analysis coming up. But I think, the biggest takeaways are the blowout losses against teams that you should be competitive against at a minimum, if not beating at this point, if you ever want to move up. I think it's the lack of notable Power 5 victories over the last, year plus. And I think it's just, the lack of offensive production. They're just, if they lose, if they lost today 30-20, and there were some positives and younger players were contributing, I think you say, okay, there's signs. Shiano said in September, this team will be better in November. I think it's hard to say that. I don't think it's true. So I know the schedule got harder, but I don't think this team is better than they were at the beginning of the season. I think some young players certainly developed, and the coaching staff deserves credit for that. But football, you need a lot of players, and they don't have a lot of players that I think can, in terms of their development, where they're at right now, get them to that next level. We'll see. The offseason's everything. I'm sure they're going to develop more players, and it's about building upon those players and adding players to that. And it's all about it's all talent. It's all about getting the right players in, but also having the right coaching staff to be able to develop that talent and coach that talent. And nobody had a good year overall in terms of coaching staff. The roster, each unit. I mean, defense certainly had moments and had flashes, and overall we're better than average, but not good enough for this team to ever be able to take a step forward. And this offense is always going to hold it back the way they are. So I'm rambling. It's hard to be too positive, but I don't also want to, for those that don't want to be hopeful, don't be hopeful. For those that want to be hopeful. I think there's, arguments for both. I think it's, there's a lot to evaluate and to really understand and know, can this team take a significant step forward in year 4? Are those 2 games, can the offense just be, not great versus awful and be enough to get to 6 wins? Maybe. We'll see. Anyway, I appreciate it. We'll have lots of coverage at the Scarlet Faith. We'll be talking about the offseason starting tonight, and follow all my coverage at scarletfaithful.com. And thanks once again for listening, and have a great rest of the holiday weekend.